You must have seen the portrait of Marilyn Monroe painted by Andy Warhol. From Marilyn's glamorous blonde bombshell image to slim figures and the androgynous styles of Twiggy and Edie Sedgwick, beauty standards have dramatically changed from the 50s to the 60s, and this can be seen in the artworks from the era. Pop art is the art of consumer culture, and during the post-war period in the United States, consumer culture was the one blooming. After World War II, there was a huge economic boom in America, and people wanted to spend their money on everything new. Thus, beauty became just one more product that was being sold as a commodity, and celebrities were the ones who embodied the latest beauty ideals that people were after. Media images were everywhere, and beautiful faces with desired bodies were present in ads, billboards, television, and the big screen. In a society so deeply immersed in consuming things, people became one more object to be consumed through the cult of film stars and celebrities. Pop artists used the language of mass media, and mass media was filled with images of beautiful people. Luckily for us, today we can look at their masterpieces to analyze and understand the beauty ideals of the Western world all throughout the 50s and the 60s. Numerous pop art paintings show film stars, celebrities, and rock stars. Some even emphasize their beauty or their particular facial or bodily features that were considered especially desirable, like Monroe's lips for example here. In this diptych, we see Monroe's lips repeated over and over again with slight changes in color. This drills into your head that this is the ideal lip standard, otherwise why make so many copies of it? In another painting, like Roy Lichtenstein's The Refrigerator from 1962, we can see the image of a housewife that was once based on an illustration from a baking soda box. The housewife wears red lipstick and a hairstyle inspired by the First Lady, Mamie Eisenhower. She also carries a fixed smile on her face. Here, Lichtenstein examines the idea of what the 50s femininity was about in American suburbia. The fake, almost scary-looking smile on the housewife's lips is a nod to famous feminist Betty Friedan and her 1963 book, The Feminine Mystique. In it, it details the stories of housewives who were suffocated by their suburban lifestyle, which is very relevant here. They were utterly bored, they wanted to work, have a career, and not be just limited to taking care of their children and husband. They wanted more than to just clean their kitchen like the lady in Lichtenstein's painting. In yet another painting by Lichtenstein called Girl with Ball, we see an image taken from an ad. The girl is seen wearing a 50s style swimsuit with a round mouth painted red and a body that deliberately makes her look more like a doll than a real woman. Lichtenstein makes us see that representations of women in the media are quite literally fake. They don't represent real people, but just an idea of what people should be like. Everything that we talk about on the channel today, such as the Instagram vs. reality series or the changing beauty standards, have already been discussed in the 50s and 60s and are not new concepts. So naturally, you're probably wondering what the beauty standards were actually like and what people of the 60s, your grandparents, were most likely attracted to. The baby boomer generation, who were teenagers in the mid-60s, were the ones creating the new taste. They replaced their American housewives and became the target consumer group of many markets, so their wants and needs were the ones shaping what was to be in fashion. 60s teenagers preferred the overlapping of gender roles. They went for a more androgynous style in fashion. They cared for rock and roll, they liked the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, songs about romance, yearning and heartbreak. They danced to rock and roll when no one was leading the dance. They looked at rock stars like Mick Jagger as sex symbols. The androgynous looking singer of the Rolling Stones had long hair, large lips and a lean figure. In this Andy Warhol portrait, we can see this famous androgynous style that was so characteristic of the 60s. Warhol highlighted the singer's large lips by painting them bright red. Very similarly to Marilyn's, it's symbolic of a change in what people are now finding attractive. He also accentuated Jagger's hairstyle with the color black next to his face that was painted pink. With his mouth slightly open and a seductive look on, Mick Jagger represents a new type of male sex symbol. This type of masculinity was a definite change from the one that 50s movie icons such as Montgomery Clift or Cary Grant embodied. Both actors are stiff and serious, they wear their nicely fitted suits, they are attractive but in a mysterious way. They don't give out too much information, while Mick Jagger shows his sexuality freely and openly. During the 60s, the so-called British invasion happened in the USA because of the enormous popularity of the Beatles. Britain's very own mod subculture became incredibly fashionable. Their particular style came from the British working class, and so it's safe to say that the new beauty trend was challenging the existing social norm. Mod fashion included tailor-made suits, thin ties, and the mop-top haircut. Young people were still the ones dictating style and beauty ideals. Boys started growing out their hair, just like Mick Jagger. Girls started wearing pants more and more. Female trousers also no longer had zippers positioned only to the side. Long gone were the 50s ideals of an ultra-feminine woman wearing Dior's new look dress. Girls now wanted to wear blue jeans, miniskirts, and short hair. This change in beauty standard is perfectly portrayed in the 1965 cover photo of the Esquire magazine, created by George Lewis. We see a woman resembling Marilyn Monroe, with shaving cream spread across her face, holding a razor, and the title reads, "The Masculinization of the American Women." This androgynous 60s look is best seen in the persona of Edie Sedgwick, a socialite and one of Andy Warhol's superstars. Andy and Edie went from one New York party to another. They were the perfect pop art duo. Edie looked completely different compared to the 50s ideals of the Marilyn Monroes of the world, and she was very slim, had a short boyish haircut, mostly wore black tight clothes and thick black eyeliner. Marilyn's curvy figure and colourful makeup with the clothes were no longer present. Much like Audrey Hepburn, who we've done an analysis of here, Edie became the face of the 60s. The short pixie haircut and the gammon features were just in. However, not everyone liked it. One writer from Mademoiselle magazine called Edie Sedgwick as looking like Peter Pan in drag. She went on to say that if Sedgwick becomes our 1966 pop queen, I have an awful feeling the girl of the year for 1967 is going to be a boy. Let's go back to one particularly unique piece of art from the era. Not many people realize that Andy Warhol painted Marilyn shortly after her tragic death in 1962. Warhol's Marilyn is painted almost like a saint. On a golden background, she is shown as a deity of the culture of fame and consumerism. Since it was created right after her death, the painting suggests that Marilyn was the victim of her own fame and the culture she was a part of. For this painting, Warhol used a publicity photo from 10 years prior. Choosing a decade-old photograph is a very deliberate choice. Just like cans of Campbell's soups, movie stars are treated as commercial goods, and therefore they too are replaceable. With her face positioned in the middle of the painting, the famous actress is shown with her golden locks, heavy makeup, and presents the feminine glamour of the 50s that was outdated in the 60s. Warhol emphasized Marilyn's makeup and hair dye, focusing on them as mediums used to create the image of a movie star. Glamour is shown as something that is artificially created. Take a look at the added red lipstick on her lips, the blue eyeshadow, and the bright yellow color that was added for her blonde hair. Warhol used colors to emphasize the fact that makeup and hair dye are all used as tools to create a mask that is a big part of the idea of beauty and femininity that we consume through mass media. Next to miniskirts, jeans, rock music, and slim androgynous girls, Marilyn types seemed like old news. The glamour of the 60s was seen in personas like Twiggy, a famous model that emerged in the late 60s, had a slim figure and short hair, donned white lipstick, and didn't care whether her nails were nicely painted. Warhol, however, noted that it was the drag queens of the 60s who preserved the glamour of the Marilyns and Elizabeth Taylors of the world, calling them the archives of ideal movie star womanhood. This 20th century idea of beauty that we've been examining here is something the famous Italian philosopher and writer Umberto Eco called consumer beauty. These beauty ideals derive from images seen on film, television, and mass media. However, Eco noted that mass media doesn't just give us one beauty ideal. Because of its always changing, rich content, there's always more and more to look at. Consumer culture constantly gives us something new. It makes the previous model of anything seem old and obsolete. It makes us yearn to have the latest, the newest, and the freshest product. Just like an iPhone, your hairstyle might go out of style because a newer one came out this week. This applies more to female beauty standards, which are more culturally heavy and determined, compared to male standards, which have a greater biological component. It's important that as we research beauty and what it means to be beautiful, we have to look at the cultural component just as equally as the biological one of a beauty standard. As always, if you enjoy the content, support the channel by subscribing. If you would like to get your own facial aesthetic assessed and learn more about your face, then you can order an aesthetics report from the Couv's website.